During the Age of Strife, the humans of the Warhammer 40k galaxy were separated across the cosmos, and most of them regressed into barbaric tribes that would lay waste to their worlds, including Earth itself. However, the birth of the Chaos God Slaanesh and the subsequent fall of the Eldari Empire would present an opportunity. In this dark time, one man came forward with a vision for the human race. He believed it was our destiny to claim the stars, but to do so would require a kind of unprecedented unity never before seen. Enter the Emperor of Mankind. Active throughout human history in one way or another, this man knew he would have to take a more proactive approach to achieving such a lofty goal. So, during the long night, the Emperor labored away in his hidden laboratory under the Himalayan mountains. There, he laid the groundwork and raised the armies he would need to conquer Earth and create his space marines to launch a Great Crusade that would reunite the lost human worlds of the galaxy under his banner and usher in a new golden age of science, reason, peace that humanity had never known. Let's discover what led to this unbelievable event, the Emperor's ultimate goals, and some of the roadblocks faced along the way to achieving greatness. Welcome back to Starhammer. Before we can talk about the Great Crusade, we must discuss what predates it. Humanity used to have an interstellar presence before the time of the Imperium. During the Dark Age of Technology, as it's known now, this period was a time of rapid expansion and technological advancement. Incredible terraforming technologies allowed humans to shape worlds to their ideal colony. Self-aware AI constructs known as Men of Iron provided the bulk of cheap labor and military chaff, allowing humans to put more of their time into various fields of advancement. This all came crashing down at the hands of the cybernetic revolt and the coming birth of Slaanesh. While humanity proved victorious over the AI, the destruction wrought was horrific. Shortly after, warp storms caused by the growing consciousness of this new chaos god made interstellar travel and communication impossible. Due to desperation and isolation, humanity's interstellar empire collapsed. Back on Earth, society regressed into barbarian nations fighting for control of whatever was left of civilization. Everything was in total anarchy. That is, until the ascendance of the Emperor. As I mentioned earlier, the immortal man who would come to be known as the Emperor had been active throughout history in one way or another, usually subtly guiding humanity as a famous historical figure or something along those lines. However, he understood that in order for his beloved species to survive and thrive, a more direct, guided hand was needed. One that freed humanity from the clutches of superstition and ushered them towards reason and understanding as the dominant force in a galaxy that the Emperor believed to be humanity's destiny. To that end, the Emperor recruited mighty warriors from the surrounding techno-barbarian nations and tribes and genetically modified them to be his first iteration of super soldier, the Thunder Warrior. The Emperor knew that he wouldn't be able to simply assert his will over Terra overnight. A lasting war would need to take place. Lives would have to be lost. Entire nations and dynasties must be turned to ash and swept away in order for humanity to at last know peace and unity. With the aid of his closest friend and advisor, Malcador, the last of the Order of the Sigillites, the Emperor went to work unifying Terra under his banner. While many would join him willingly, others opposed the Raptor Imperialis banners that heralded the coming of the mighty armies of Thunder Warriors. Those were either assimilated by force or destroyed entirely. Millions of people died in this great conflict, and the Emperor, despite the necessity of these sacrifices, felt the weight of each life lost. His empathy, however, did not deter him from his mission, as he believed the ends truly did justify the means. But there was more to the Unification Wars than just the conquest and assimilation of the techno-barbarian hordes. Humanity was not only plagued by violence, but certain aspects of human belief fueled a great level of that violence. So, the Emperor's conquest was guided by the imperial truth. This truth rejected religion and superstition in favor of science and reason. Believing that all religion was one of the root causes of humanity's near extinction during the Age of Strife, the Emperor saw no reason to keep it around. He and his Thunder Warriors tore down idols and monasteries across the planet wherever they were found and replaced them with the atheistic vision of the Emperor. There's a really good story about the last church on Terra and the Emperor and the priest within discussing the implications of God and religion and all of that, which I'll link down below because it's pretty damn good. But anyway, this priest ended up wanting to die with his religion. But before he walked into the flames of his burning tabernacle, he told the emperor that in the quest to deny humanity a divine figure to worship, they would eventually turn to worship the emperor himself to fulfill their innate need for a higher power. Look how that turned out. I wonder if the emperor thinks about that priest while he's trapped on the golden throne. What does that mean for him today, and what are his regrets, if any? Moving on. As the Emperor's War of Unity drew to a close with his victory, he ran into his first major roadblock. The men who helped him win that war, Thunder Warriors, were beginning to be more of a problem than an asset. Unlike the Space Marines that they had been the first iteration of, the Thunder Warriors were unable to do much besides wage war. They were never meant for anything else. Due to the breakdown of their bodies, thanks to their modifications, mental instability and early deaths were far too common for them to be a reliable source of manpower going forward. There are a few different accounts of how this went down, but regardless, the Custodian Guard and the first generation of Space Marines carried out a ruthless cull of the Thunder Warriors. But their destruction was only the beginning of the reconstruction efforts on Terra. The Emperor would install an all-encompassing authoritarian administration to oversee the rebuilding and manage any knowledge that could be scavenged from old Earth, using it to begin educating and advancing humanity spiritually, mentally, and physically. The Emperor would then begin to focus much more heavily on rebuilding the human genome, and came to the conclusion that if humanity were to rule the galaxy, it would have to be the same humanity he had known before the introduction of rampant mutation and psychic influence. But that would take time, and if he were to construct a successful Imperium, he would need more help. With that in mind, he began the Primarch Project, a genetic project using his own DNA as the base to create sons who would be his top generals and diplomats, due to them having similar abilities to his own. But fate had other plans. The Chaos Gods had been watching what was going down on Terra for some time. These entities and all of their influence owed their existence to the mortals of the galaxy in their worship and beliefs, and they saw what the Emperor was doing as a grave threat. Through some magical means, and maybe with some inside help, depending on who you ask, the Chaos Gods slipped past the protective psychic barriers of the Emperor and into his labs. There, the ruinous powers stole the gestating Primarchs and scattered them throughout the galaxy in hopes that the Emperor would never find them, and that, if he did, they would be more loyal to themselves than their absent father, thereby sowing the seeds for discord amongst the Emperor's highest ranks. While this setback was monumental, it didn't slow down the Emperor. He raised up 20 legions of new Space Marines to help him kickstart the Great Crusade to unite humanity across the stars. But before he could do that, he needed the means to do so. While the Emperor's resources were vast, they weren't quite enough to wage a galactic crusade. For that, he would need the help of the tech priests of Mars. Touching down at the summit of Olympus Mons, the Emperor descended to the Red Planet with a retinue of custodians and Space Marines. But he didn't bare his fangs here. The main goal of the Emperor was to enlist the Mechanicum into his effort, not force them under his banner. While he disdained their need for religion and reliance on cybernetic augmentation, he required the great factoriums of Mars to provide the weapons and void ships he needed. But the Emperor realized that the Mechanicum would be a far more useful ally than a forced vassal. The two sides formed a mutually beneficial agreement and signed the Treaty of Mars. The Emperor would allow the Mechanicum to keep their religion, and for the tech priests to proclaim him the physical embodiment of the Omnissiah to fulfill the cult's own prophecy and maintain civil peace on Mars. They would also provide the Emperor with the means to wage his crusade, and the Emperor would more or less grant them autonomy within his Imperium. He changed his sigil to the two-headed Aquila that we know today as a symbol of the eternal cooperation of the two entities, and the Treaty of Mars was finalized, allowing the Emperor to begin his crusade in earnest. The vanguard of this mass mobilization were the rogue traders. Formerly warlords or rulers of the conquered techno-barbarian strongholds on Earth, these exceptional leaders bent the knee to the Emperor, and, in exchange, were given the autonomy to scout ahead of the main Crusade fleet with their own small army to prepare worlds for the Emperor's arrival. In this way, the Emperor removed any powerful rivals and forbid them to return to Terra under pain of death. Besides that, he also had the benefit of capable leaders forging the path for the Crusade. It was a win-win either way. As the Emperor's fleet grew, so too did his forces. Yet progress was slow. Without the Primarchs to provide the gene seed for the new Astartes and the leadership they needed, the Emperor had to do it all himself. But it was only a matter of time before he was reunited with his long-lost sons. And not long into the Crusade, the Emperor came across Horus, future Imperial War Master and chief betrayer of his father's Imperium. With access to the Astartes gene seed secured, and the production of Space Marines occurring faster than ever, the Crusade was once again on the right track. It's important to note that Despite the name, the endeavor that was the Great Crusade was not a purely violent one. Worlds were brought into imperial compliance in several ways, but the Emperor always preferred to use diplomacy over conquest. After all, this whole operation was about the reunification of humanity. Kinda hard to unify a lack of existence. That being said, the Emperor knew that if humanity was to survive, unity had to be achieved at all costs. Remember, ends justified the means to this guy. As the Crusade waged on and the Primarchs were reunited with their father, more and more worlds were brought into the fold. Their resources harvested to further advance the cause. Wars were ended, horrible Xenos threats destroyed, and about 200 years after it began, the Great Crusade had reclaimed huge swaths of the galaxy for the Emperor. Science and reason prevailed, and humanity began to enter another golden age. But everything that could go wrong began to go wrong. The Crusade demanded that the Primarchs and their legions be separated from the Emperor for extended periods of time. It was just the nature of such a vast operation. Because of that, the kids began to misbehave. The Word-Bearers contradicted the Imperial truth on every world they conquered by constructing a religion to the Emperor. The Thousand Sons, in their ceaseless pursuit of arcane knowledge, began to experience corruption among their sorcerers that would turn them into horrific chaos spawn. And the Astartes and Imperial Army soldiers began to speak of loyalty to their Primarch over that of the Emperor, who they saw as disconnected from the realities of the war effort. Especially after the Ullanor Crusade, which saw the Emperor return to Terra to work on his secret Webway project and left the war in the hands of the newly anointed Imperial War Master, Horus Lupercal. But the Emperor never told the Primarchs why he was leaving the front lines. Not even Horus, his favored son. Many of the Primarchs already felt slighted by Horus being made the War Master. And to add insult to injury, none of them were offered a seat on the High Council of Terra, the ruling body of the administration the Emperor created to run the Imperium. Essentially, they felt as if the Emperor was handing over the Imperium to ungrateful mortals who knew nothing of the realities of the Crusade and the sacrifices that they had made to get to where they are. This caused a lot of bitterness to rise up within the ranks, and that's when the Chaos Gods saw their chance. Through subterfuge and trickery, Horus was wounded by a Nurgle-corrupted planetary governor during a battle of the Moon of Davin. Despite Horus's enhanced immune system, not even a Primarch could overcome the chaos-laced pathogens that had penetrated his system. Erebus, first chaplain of the Word-Bearers, secret chaos agent, convinced the captains of Horus's legion to let him and some chaos sorcerers try and save their beloved Primarch. During this healing process, Erebus sent Horus's mind into the warp. There, he showed Horus a vision of the Emperor being worshipped as a god, with millions of people bowing before his golden throne, and the Primarchs discarded and forgotten as the Emperor had finally achieved what he truly sought from the Great Crusade. Horus's suppressed jealousy and anger at his father was heated to the boiling point, and when the Primarch awoke from the ritual, fully healed and ready for battle, he knew that his father could never be the rightful master of the galaxy, but Horus could, and he had to stop at nothing to see his father cast down from his throne before his vision would come to pass. Horus accepted the aid of the Chaos Gods in his campaign, losing his soul in the process and corrupting 9 of his fellow Primarchs, their legions, and their Imperial Army detachments to the foul powers of chaos, and began the brutal civil war, now known as the Horus heresy. So now that we know the gist of it all, and how it went down, we can ask ourselves, was the Great Crusade successful? Well, yeah, up until Horus and his shenanigans at least. The Emperor had indeed succeeded in uniting all discovered human worlds under his banner in one way or another. Besides the Crusade, no other large-scale conflicts were going on, and within the Imperium itself, peace was the norm. Each world incorporated into the Imperium benefited from the protection and monumental resources that the Empire had at its disposal. These admitted worlds would share their own cultures and knowledge. Long-lost technology and science would be rediscovered, and for a time, the general population of the Imperium prospered. But the fires of ambition between the Primarchs and their legions engulfed the entire Imperium. Some Primarchs had legitimate grievances with the Emperor. Others simply saw a way to put an end to their daddy issues. Some only turned to chaos after they had nowhere else to go. The Emperor, for his part, didn't do much to calm the flames. His favoritism of Horus, his dishonesty and treachery with his own sons, all helped bring his beloved empire to its knees. And as Lorgar once said, he is a creature incapable of trust, infested by secrets. I hate that about him. And that's it for this one, y'all. Let me know your takes on the Great Crusade down below. And as always, drop a like if you liked it, a subscribe if you really liked it. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and check my community tab for shitposts and shenanigans. I'll see y'all in the next one. Toodles.